Welcome back to Star Narratives, the podcast. This is accessible and relatable astrology that teaches you how to support your emotional health using the wisdom of the zodiac. I'm your host, Natha Campanella. Hey guys, I'm back. I'm so excited to be back here. I have taken some time off of the podcast and it's been great, but I wanted to start bringing it back. So I have some episodes lined up, but I want to start with, this is a solo cast. Just going to go into sharing with you some of the ways that learning my own astrology has been so life-changing. This is actually an invitation as well for you to sign up for my free class called Astrology Holds the Key. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing some personal stories about how astrology has changed the way that I relate to myself in the world. In the class, I'm going to go into how you can use astrology and give you some concrete ways to know yourself better, even after the free class, right? So if this is an interesting topic to you, using astrology as an emotional wellness tool, using it as a map to who you are, you will enjoy the class. And by all means, sign up even if you can't make the live version, because a recording will be sent out. And like I said, you're going to learn some stuff about yourself just by listening to, the hour-long class. There's a lot of food for thought. I ask you guys a lot of questions that you can ponder, which is one of my favorite ways to teach, is to sort of turn it back around on you and ask you to really become the seeker. Become the seeker inside. So come sign up for that. Astrology Holds the Key. And are you ready? You want to hear some personal stories? All right, let's do this. Astrology is this very dynamic map. It's not like you just learn all of the information and then you're just done. There are new portals and doorways and windows opening up all the time. And I think that's part of what makes learning astrology so compelling for people, especially for people that keep wanting more, is that there is more. There's always more there are more connections to make, and there are these aha moments where you're like, oh my God, I hadn't seen this before. So I wanted to talk about my moon. Okay, so the moon is obviously the seat of our emotions, and it's so personal. We all emote differently. We all have different emotional sensitivities and reactions, and those aren't even predictable. So even when I say I know that I tend to experience emotions like this, that's not always true for the situation. So just a little bit about me. I'm very sensitive and I can be very emotional, but also not emotional at all. And that always confused myself. That always confused me. I didn't understand, like, how could I feel so much empathy for like a dog commercial, right? A dog food commercial where I just, or there was a Gillette commercial of all things. It was a razor that made me tear up every single time I heard the music growing up. And I did not understand that, because there was another part of me that was just like blank. Like I didn't really feel that much. People would talk about these deep emotions, loving somebody or wanting something, right? And I never really related to it. I always kind of felt in a way that I was like faking emotions. Like I know I'm supposed to feel this thing in this situation, and yet I don't really feel anything. And then all of a sudden a Gillette commercial would come on and I'd be weeping. Like, what is that? I don't understand that. And as I begin to learn astrology, I got it. My moon is in Pisces, and Pisces is a water sign. It's very sensitive. Pisces is very porous. All of the water signs are. But you end up kind of feeling the energetics of things as opposed to feeling the real felt sense of the emotion. And like I said, this is not a general read for every single person that has a Pisces moon because it depends on what our moons are doing in our charts, you know, to really get a sense. But my personal experience with Pisces moon is that it is a moon sign where there's so much empathy, so much sympathy, so much connection to feeling things, but not a very felt sense of it. And as I began to learn more about it, I finally got it. I was like, oh, I'm not, it's not that I'm missing something. It's not that I'm doing it wrong. It's not that I'm cold hearted. It's just that this is the moon sign, right? So I can get like very psychically connected to somebody. I can be walking down the street and walk past a man and sort of feel his energy, the energy of his life experience, or even where he's just at in that moment. I feel it flashing through my body. Very uncomfortable before I learned how to kind of tune that out and block that out. And that is one of the gifts of our Pisces placements is that we can feel into invisible information easily. But one of the things that we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to turn it off. And I think in many ways, my not being able to access some of my really personal emotions, and that's changed a little bit as I've gotten older. I can't say that's as true anymore as it used to be. But my not accessing them, I think, was just a learned defense mechanism. I remember going to parties as a teenager and like feeling everybody's stuff and not understanding that that's what was happening, but just knowing like, oh God, I wish I could turn it off. And I've shared this in some previous podcast episodes, but that's one of the reasons why I started drinking as a teenager was because I just couldn't stand knowing what everybody else was thinking and feeling. And again, as I've gotten older and I've learned so much more about my astrology, I really started to get it that I needed to learn how to turn that stuff off so that I wasn't feeling it, which has been lovely. I always say to my clients, are you doing energetic hygiene? And if they don't know what that is, I educate them a little bit and I'll tell you here that energetic hygiene, this is really important for anybody that has a lot of water in their chart, is to begin to learn techniques. And sometimes you need to find a teacher to do this, right? It's much easier said than done, but you want to really figure out some ways that you are turning yourself off to other people's energies so that you're not just walking down the street getting a flash of somebody's life experience, or you're not catching somebody's emotions in quite the same way that you might as a younger person. So my understanding of my Pisces moon and my other Pisces placements has really helped me to see some of the gifts of that and also some of the stress mechanisms. Because with astrology, every sign has a pretty predictable set of stress responses. And the stress response of Pisces is to numb, to get away from that info. So, like drinking, for example, drinking is a pretty typical response to being overwhelmed by the world and other people's energies. And it doesn't do your Pisces placements any good. So again, in previous podcast episodes, there's a solo class that I did on Neptune. My personal experience is that I realized that if I was going to be in a career where I was reading energy, it's not like I sit with a client and I just read their energy. It's not like that. But if I want to open myself up to some of the wisdom that can come through in a chart, I really have to be clear. So for me, drinking alcohol was really muddying up. It was making me actually far more stressed out than I was. I didn't realize it. It took me years to realize it. But if any of you listening are like, oh, I've got a lot of water in my chart, I feel very psychically sensitive, I'm not sure how to deal with it, not sure what to do with it, a suggestion would be to really look at what you're using to cope. And if you find that they feel like unhealthy coping mechanisms, then look into that, right? Because some of my healthier coping mechanisms for my Pisces stuff is I get overwhelmed really easily, right? If I'm in a room and two people are talking, or if there's two people having tension with each other in a room and the music is on and I'm getting a text on my phone, my brain starts to scramble. So my healthier coping mechanism is to get out of the room. So a lot of times I will, even something as easy as going to the restroom to take a few minutes to gather my awareness. Or if I can get away for longer, I'll come upstairs and like do the laundry or something. My family always knows that when there's a bunch of chaos going on and I walk upstairs, that I've been overwhelmed. And then I can come back down and I'll have settled. But key in knowing more about your moon sign, right, is that you want to know like what happens to me when I'm under stress. Because half the time, guess what? We're having a stress response. We don't even realize it because we're just so accustomed to going through our lives and we have these expectations of ourselves. And, here I am wanting to spend time with my family, with the people that I'm with. I want to be with them. And then I'm having a stress response. And I used to cope with that by drinking. And it made me a much less nice, less easy, less relaxed person. But I didn't see it like that. I didn't even realize what was happening. So, really interesting to learn about your moon sign. Let's talk about sun sign, right? Because I've had similar experiences with my sun sign. And I'm going to share some kind of embarrassing stuff with you guys here. My sun sign is Taurus. I have never really related to Taurus that much when I would read the horoscopes and stuff. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, Taurus, stubborn. Yeah, okay, I'm stubborn. Very practical. Yes, I'm practical. I mean, like, I got it. It made sense. Some of the things made sense, but I never really pieced it together. So the sun is about who you are, like the real core of you, the truth of you, right? If you're not performing for somebody and you're not trying to be a certain way or morph yourself into some thing that somebody else wants you to be, then we're looking at the sun. And of course, our sun gets totally piled upon as we go through our lives because, well, we want approval, right? We want to fit in. We do that thing where we totally contort ourselves to be accepted. As we get older, we begin hopefully to peel off some of that. We begin to like really settle in to like, what are my core needs? Right? Like, who am I really? And that's sun stuff. So, knowing your sun sign, again, there's this same thing that happens with the moon sign, right? We think we know ourselves really well. But as we get older and we begin to unpeel some of the conditioning, we start to see, oh, that has kind of been an act. I do that. And when I do that, it means that I'm not really all that true to myself. So, something that I really started to notice about Taurus is that Taurus likes to be right. I mean, unfortunately, it's really, really hard for me to be wrong, really. And I spent many years with a very low level of like irritation, anxiety in my system because I felt really like insulted when people would disagree with me. And I think it would get worse when I was drinking. Not that I was ever like brawling, but certainly there were a few people that I would get very bickery with. And it wasn't like for fun. I wasn't like sparring for fun as some people do. I would get really, really irritated and really like very righteous and kind of like unable to see the forest for the trees. And that is very Taurus in nature. I mean, you know, if you're listening to this and you're a Taurus, know that I am not picking on you. All of the earth signs, Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus, earth signs, well, every element has their difficulty, of course. Every sign has their difficulty. The difficulty of earth signs is that we can be very black and white. We can have a hard time changing our perspective if it's a tightly held, dearly held belief. But as I got to really understand this Taurus archetype, in a way, I was able to forgive myself for some of that. I really saw clearly that it wasn't that I was just, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it, but I wasn't just like a hag. There, that was nice, right? um, yeah, it was this thing where I needed to feel comfortable. And tying that into a Pisces moon, being highly sensitive, the way that I could control my sensitivity was trying to make myself comfortable. So I've told this story before in other episodes or another episode, but like I am that person that has like everything you could possibly need in her purse, like soy sauce and salt, because I don't want to eat the food if it doesn't have enough condiment action, right? It's not worth it to me. And I don't want to be caught out in the world without my chapstick or without some Tylenol. And so I am always that person like, yes, oh, you need some Dramamine? I have it. Oh, you need a hair tie? I have it. When my kids were little, I always had food in my purse for them. And that is a very Taurus way of controlling the environment, right? And once I began to understand that some of that control wasn't just me being like, it wasn't pointless. It was coming from a place of, I get overwhelmed really easily. My nervous system gets thrown out of whack. And there are only so many things that I can do to control my little environment, and I'm going to do them. And that is the Taurus. And before I knew that, I thought I was high maintenance. I thought I was a hassle, right? Like, oh, yes, I'm the one that has to have XYZ in order to feel okay. And meanwhile, I would look at all my friends who could like leave the house with like nothing. I think, how on earth can those people just leave the house with nothing except like their wallet and their keys? That sounds terrible. I need a jacket and I need a little hat. Like, anyway, if I had not learned more about my Taurus sun, and I'm still learning more and more and more, right? Like I said, it's never ending. If I had not learned that, I would still be operating under some really incorrect assumptions about myself. And I think that's one of the really cool things about learning astrology is that it is this really objective viewpoint about who we are. And it helps us to see ourselves more clearly. It helps us to forgive ourselves some of our quirks and idiosyncrasies, right? A lot of us are kind of walking around thinking that we're bad or we're annoying or we're wrong or we're not good enough or we're doing this obnoxious thing and we don't know how to stop. And the truth is that those are all parts of who we are and they show up for really good reasons. And the more that we can understand them and the more that we can see when we're in a stress response, the more power we have to mitigate it, right? So we're not just like at the whim. And speaking of whims, let's talk about Venus. So I had relationships as a young woman. And I would feel these storm clouds blow in, and I would just think, oh no, here we go. And I thought I had to wait until the storm clouds blew out. I thought I had no control over my moods, over what was happening in my relationship. Like, I don't know. I just didn't think I had any control, I guess. I was at the mercy of whatever, right? And I would start to get bored with a partner, and I would think, oh God, oh God, oh no. Oh no, what am I going to do? Now I'm getting bored. This always starts to cause problems, and I didn't understand my Venus. So Venus is our, in many ways, Venus is how we relate to people, especially people that we're attracted to. So our intimate partnerships. Venus is like, our self-concept, our self-worth, who we become in relationship. Also, Venus is connected to our money, right? So if you look at Venus as sort of the archetype of abundance, what do we consider to be abundant in this culture? Money, talent, skill, beauty, a content relationship, people that love us, people that we love. These all fall under the umbrella of Venus. And like I said, before I understood my Venus, which is in the sign of Gemini, I just thought I was kind of at the mercy, right? Now that I know Venus in Gemini, Gemini is very fast moving, right? Venus in Gemini just is this sort of shapeshifter, like, oh, I'm changing my mind. Oh, this is interesting now. Oh, that's not interesting anymore. Like, it is very shifty, right? And shifty, not in a bad way, but shifty in like we're keeping it moving. And so I would notice that with jobs too. I would have a job and it would be fine and good until all of a sudden it wasn't. And I was like, oh God, I'm bored. I hate this job. I've got to quit this job. And I never really got it. But understanding my Venus really helped me to see, oh, when I start to feel those stirrings of boredom, I actually can do something about them before it becomes so overwhelming that I'm out, that I'm just like quitting a job or quitting a relationship without any warning, which made me feel very flaky, made me feel very undependable, and like, oh my God, am I ever going to nail this? Am I ever going to be able to like do this, have a job that I love, for example, make money in a way that I love? Or am I ever going to have a relationship where I'm just content? And understanding how Gemini works and really getting that with Gemini, and for all of you with any Gemini in your chart, Gemini wants to be entertained, and it's not up to the other people in the world to entertain you. It is up to you to pull in what is interesting. Ooh, how can I connect with this person on a deeper level? Or how can I really play with the way that I'm processing the world? How can I be clever? How can I adapt? Right? And these are all Gemini questions. And understanding this really opened up my relationship to my money, right? Understanding that for me, I needed to be working for myself, because in the sort of hustle of finding ways to generate business, like, that's exciting. That's not boring, right? Working with clients, ooh, really exciting. Every person is new. Even if I have worked with you 10 times, the version of you that sits in front of me on the 10th time is very different than the last time, because you've had all of this life experience. And the same thing within partnership is really understanding that the mental stimulation is one of the biggest parts of it, and really doing my own part to keep that fresh, not putting my power in somebody else's hands to, here's the money, I'm buying a ticket so that you can entertain me. Like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So, really, my whole reason for doing this episode is just to share some personal experiences about how astrology has opened up and really changed my life. And I've seen evidence in so many other people, so many clients that I've read for, just the talk about opening up a door into a whole new room of information about self. And astrology really is this teacher, right? It just keeps showing us more and more when we're ready to understand it. And it's so empowering because it's not to say, oh, you're super sensitive. Every time you get stressed out, you're going to want to numb out. Bye. It's like, oh, you're super sensitive. Every time you get stressed out, you're going to want to numb out. And you want to know some remedies in case you don't want to be numbing out? Oh, you want to be numbing out? Okay, cool. That's good. But if you don't, here's what you can do. So I love it. As you can tell, I love it. And I'll leave you with that. By all means, send me DMs on Instagram if you have questions or you have insights about some of the ways that astrology has helped you. I would love to hear it. I get such a kick out of this modality and this tool and just seeing how it is changing people's lives. All right, just a reminder that if you really liked this episode, come check out my free class, Astrology Holds the Key. Registration is currently open and can't wait to teach you more about this. All right, bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to work with me privately or read more about all of the numerous ways to work with me, visit my website, nathacampanella.com. I really appreciate any time that you take to leave a review of this podcast on any of the platforms that you listen on. It helps other people to find it. And of course, if you enjoy this podcast, share it widely and freely with those that you know and love. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.